Can I begin?
Please.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Cabrillo Unified School District. I'd like to report that the governing board met in closed session from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock and took the following action. Per board policy 5117, the governing board voted 4-0 to deny student A's interdistrict transfer out of Cabrillo Unified School District. Thank you all for being here. I have the honor of chairing tonight's meeting as our president, Rob Pappalardo, is out of town on business. It's my first time presiding, so please bear with me. Will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Nope? All right. Ms. Nolan, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The adoption of the agenda as presented. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. I second.
Moved by Kurt, second by Michael. How was that, Patty? Okay? Elizabeth, student, staff, community recognition.
I'm very happy tonight to have Joy Dardanelle, the principal at Farallon View Elementary School, come up and recognize two groups of important volunteers. And in our community, I think we recognize more than many communities how important the role of the volunteer is.
Thank you. Today, I'm really happy to be able to present to you the Moonridge Bus Stop volunteers as well as our Breakfast Club volunteers. The Moonridge Bus Stop volunteers or supervisors are there every single morning and ready to help the students with lining up and getting together in an orderly manner. If you ever go to Moonridge in the morning, the girls line up on one side and the boys line up on the other side. They're all in grade level order. They get on the bus smoothly, rain or shine. It's a beautiful thing, and it's really, we owe so much of it to the bus stop volunteers who help out every day. They also communicate with us with little slips of paper as well. We also have many parents who come to Farallon View to volunteer for the Breakfast Club, and some of them come from Moonridge to all the way up to Farallon View, which is about a 20-25 minute drive, and they make it so that they can help out with the Breakfast Club in the morning. So some of our volunteers do speak Spanish primarily, and so I'd like to have an opportunity to address them to just express the thanks of the board as well as myself in the work that they do. So I'm going to just turn around for a second. Excuse me, board members, while I turn my back to you. A los padres que están aquí, que nos ayudan en la parada del autobús y también en la club de tarea, muchas gracias de la mesa directiva del distrito, porque sabemos que ustedes han hecho mucho para ayudar a los niños y también ser líderes a todos los padres y que ayudan tanto con los estudiantes. Aquí voy a presentar los certificados a Paula Luna. ¿Cómo está? Okay. Salvadora Montelongo. Gracias. ¿Puede estar aquí? No. Okay, en el centro. ¿Puede estar aquí? Okay. Norma Miramontes. Gracias, Norma. Fabiola Buenrostro no está. She is not here. Maria Zamora. Araceli Arellano. Oh, aquí está. Gracias, Araceli. Elba González. ¿Dónde está? Leticia Zavala. there are many volunteers, so we're very thankful. Ariana Bidrio, Gina Ramirez, I'm waiting for Juana Hernandez, Fabiola Torres, Juana Hernandez, and Elisa Huerta, who is not here. So if you could stand here and vamos a un momentito. Una foto.
Joy, could I take a picture and email it to you?
Yes, you can.
That'd be great.
Okay.
When you're done.
Here, where's? I'll just do it there. Uno, dos, tres. Cheese. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Agenda item number 9, comments from the public related to items not on this agenda. There is one person, Lisa Zanetti. Did I pronounce your name right? Tell me how to do it. Zanetti. And Lisa, we value you being here tonight and with what you have to say to the board, but the board will be unable to address anything that you have to say tonight, as it's not an agenda item. So, all right, thank you.
I'm Lisa Zanetti. I'm on Hatch Elementary's auction committee.
Oh.
And we just wanted to give you a personal invitation to come to this year's event on March 1st. We passed around a little invitation. I may not have gotten enough, so if we need more, I can print some more and bring them over. We have a huge number of children this year. We have a huge budget for enrichment programs, and we're not hitting it right now. So anything the board can do to help us out, spread the word, get some attendance, anything like that, we greatly appreciate it. And if you can attend, I am happily taking VIP ticket orders personally, and I will treat you right. You can ask Elizabeth. She was there last year, had a great
Absolutely.
time, and she even won a raffle basket from us. That was phenomenal. She'll attest. So my information for contact is on there. If you can make it, we would love to have you, and we'd really appreciate you guys spreading the word in the community to any of your friends that are supporters. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Item number 10, representative reports, CUTA report. Anybody here? Michael? Kathleen? Tom? Oh, you're just in the nick of time, Tom. Are you going to say a few words?
Barbara's going to speak for me. I have nothing to say. Let's talk about this.
Kathleen?
It's been a long day.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Wall, and I'm speaking on behalf of CUTA tonight. The Hatch teachers, tonight they were invited to come to the staff meeting, let me center myself, to the board meeting. We tried to take turns, each site coming to a board meeting, and tonight was Hatch's night. And we have 6 teachers here tonight. The rest are coming Thursday night. So, Hatch is the biggest elementary school in the district. I think you all know that. And thanks to the school board, to Superintendent Rorick, and to our principal, Jim Ward, it is a very happy place. Thank you very much.
Would those of you who represent Hatch please stand? We can applaud you. Thank you, old friends. CSEA, any rep for CSEA tonight? No? All right, well, we're sorry about that. Item number 11, reports. We're going to receive and discuss the Local Control Accountability Plan, requirements and development process. It's called the LCAP. Tony?
Mr. McGear up here. So it's my pleasure this evening to present to the governing board information on the local control accountability. Let's get rid of that, please. To present information on the local control accountability plan. And for those of us who have not incorporated a new acronym into our vernacular, it's the LCAP. And I'll be using that tonight throughout the presentation so that it will ingrain and we'll walk away with that, all of us really knowing what that LCAP is all about. So before beginning, the LCAP is part and parcel to the new local control funding formula, which is now how schools are funded in the state of California, which is a dramatic shift from the prior revenue limit process that we had in play since Prop 13 passed. So it's been with us for 30-some years. So with the local control turning over to schools and communities more control over how funds are utilized, collapsing of a lot of categoricals that have historically come with strings. In other words, you get these funds, you can spend them in this narrow way. There's much more control over how funds will be spent in districts. But with that, the LCAP provides a process to define the expenditure of those funds so that it's transparent and includes consultation with our community. So my presentation this evening is going to go over statutory requirements of the LCAP, recommendations on how to develop the plan and engage stakeholders. We'll look at a sample timeline for development and adoption, and we'll look at an abbreviated timeline for the current year. And at the very end, we'll look at our own proposed timeline here in Cabrillo Unified. We'll also talk about the role of the superintendent and the role of the governing board in this. So LCFF, which is the local control funding formula, is designed to close an achievement gap. And the achievement gap clearly is that below high-performing kids who are typically identified with targeted groups of English learners and low-income students. But with that comes a reliance on student outcomes and accountability to those outcomes. So as I began to say a little bit earlier, LCFF is a shift, and it's a shift away from lots of compliance and lots of forced expenditures in specific areas to a process that is more local in terms of what communities define are the biggest needs that they have, and then directing those dollars towards that, but also ensuring that from year to year they're measuring progress towards the goals that they've established and where those funds in the budget actually exist to support those programs. So it's no longer is it a state's plan for serving eligible students, but it's a local plan to develop local results. That doesn't mean that state testing and those kinds of things go away. It's just on this level right here. So it's going to require us to really be different, have a different mindset in terms of how we plan. So again, going back to the old paradigm, right there is beginning with a definition of what resource do we have, how much do we have, how are we permitted to use it, how do we comply with all the state laws and regulations, and then what are the audit requirements. So that's kind of driven your program decisions. These funds could come to support English learners. These funds could come to support other targeted uses. Quite frankly, this all comes about from a mistrust in several law cases that had occurred over the years, through the 70s in particular, of schools serving these targeted students, and to ensure that districts did that, these dollars came in a categorical system. So the new way of thinking requires us first to think about student outcomes. So, and it's no longer on a year-to-year basis, but we're being asked to look at what we can provide kids over a 3-year period, and then benchmarking and doing an analysis of how close we came to our targets, and then using that information to establish programmatic and funding decisions for the very next year. So under the requirements that the state has developed and the State Board of Education recently approved in mid-January, the LEAs are required to produce a 3-year plan, and they must update it annually. So it's not a 3-year plan, we get to the end of it, and then we create a new 3-year plan. We have 3 years of planning around service to students always in play. And so we're adding an additional year each year and adjusting the plan for the next year and the second year out based on our success in implementing the plan in the current year. So in the LCAP, these 3 items must be included. We must identify specific goals that are based on the state priorities, and there are 8 state priorities. We'll get into those in a moment. For all numerically significant subgroups, students with disability and eligible students. So that means that we still need to look at, for our district, we still need to look at students, English learners, Hispanic students. We still need to look at white students. We need to look at students with disabilities and students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch. We need to ensure that we have specific actions that we will use to implement in accomplishing the goals, and we need to have linkage to the expenditures in support of those actions inside the LCAP. So LCAP is a comprehensive plan, and it should align with other site plans and our single plan for student achievement, our LEA plan, even though the requirements for maintaining those plans does not go away, but they should be consistent. So we just talked here about the mid-January, the State Board of Education approving the LCAP along with some emergency regulations to implement LCFF. So with adopting the spending regulations, now requires the LEAs to increase or improve services for eligible students in proportion to the increase of funds received each year. What that means, and I know it's a complicated sentence if you read it, and it might be even nonsensical, is that under LCFF, we're receiving a certain dollar amount, and there is a target, and the state has an 8-year plan for us to reach that target. And each year, the state will be adding additional dollars, assuming that the economy continues to grow, to close that gap. And so what we need to do is to identify all the funds that we are currently using to serve targeted students. And then each year, we need to increase the services to those students in a proportional amount to the new money that we get. That's what that means. And the current year is the benchmark. So it's really critical this year that we clearly identify the services that we are providing, the dollar amounts that we are utilizing to provide those services. So we need to do a needs assessment. We need to look at all kinds of data to inform our goals. We also need to think about a 3-year period, not look at isolated years. And the template is our roadmap for planning in the near term and the long term. So let's take a look at what the LCAP template looks like. There are 3 sections, and each of those sections we need to address the 8 state priorities, which again we will get to momentarily. The first section is called Conditions of Learning. We'll get a little bit more into each of these momentarily. The second category are pupil outcomes, and then engagement of community, including all stakeholders, staff, and parents, business, the whole thing. So conditions of learning contain 3 of the state's 8 priorities. And of course, they are not in numerical order, but they are the basic conditions. And one way to think of these basic conditions is to think of the Williams requirements. Under that category are to ensure that teachers are qualified and properly assigned to instruct the students that they are assigned, that schools remain in good repair, and that students have access to, on a one-to-one basis, to the board-adopted instructional materials. And then implementation of state standards is a part of that as well, and course access, which is the very last bullet right there. And what that means is that students are enrolled in a broad course of study, meaning that they are appropriately assigned all of the core classes, so that they're engaged in language arts, they're engaged in mathematics, history, social science, physical education, science, and all of those. So the second area that is part of the LCAP are pupil outcomes. And there are 2 of the 8 categories, so now we're up to 5, if you're counting. And those include pupil achievement and other pupil outcomes. So some of the data that we need to look at as part of our needs assessment are these areas that are listed over here on the side over here. Passing rates on advanced placement, reclassification rates for English learners, performance on standardized tests, etc. And then finally, the third area here is around student-parent engagement. And these are the final 3 categories: parent involvement, pupil engagement, and school climate. And so the focus areas for your needs assessment includes, attendance rates, dropout rates, suspension, expulsion rates. Those are all part of school climate. And then parent involvement, how do we involve parents in decision-making and partnering with students. So now that we have collected this data, and which is our needs assessment across those 3 areas, then we get right into the heart of the template itself. And so we have 3 parts of that document that we will be writing to. The first is stakeholder engagement, and what's really nice is that having embarked on a strategic planning process this year, the district has done really extensive outreach to our community. Most districts are doing 2 or 3 community meetings and an online survey. We did 3 community meetings. We did 13 stakeholder focus groups. We also did an event with all of our staff, representative staff members at CUNY. We did one-on-one interviews. So we did above and beyond of the type of stakeholder engagement that is required under the LCAP. So we have a good baseline understanding of what our community wants and expects from Cabrillo Unified. So, so we've completed our needs assessment, we've engaged our stakeholders, and so now we need to write our goals, determine our progress indicators, and then link those to specific actions, services, and expenditures. And I've sort of kind of gone through those 3 processes already. So that's the parent and the stakeholder engagement. Goals and progress indicators. So we are required that we list our initial goals, and then in each annual update, which won't be included in this one because we're just setting the goals, but in each annual update, we must include a review of how we did in meeting those goals. And we have to have goals that address each of those 8 areas that we just looked at a moment ago. And then this is the area right here that internally that we haven't yet begun, because we need to identify what our actual goals are before we can start aligning specific action, services, and expenditures in order to carry out the plan. So let's take a look at the levels of engagement. I know this is a lot of information. And the first is to involve. Who are we going to involve in developing our plan based on our needs assessment? And from our perspective, it's a broad community, stakeholders that will be involved. Who will we consult with? Again, we'll get into a little more specifics there, but it will be, that stakeholder group. And then who do we need to inform in terms of the plan that we come up with and get their input? So here's a nice graphic that kind of gets an idea of who it is we're required and to consult and have engagement with in terms of consultation with teachers, principals, school personnel, pupils, local bargaining units. We will present to review and comment a parent advisory committee, an English learner advisory committee, and then I must respond in writing to those comments that we receive from those groups, as well as local bargaining groups, and post those, not only the comments, but my response in writing on the website. So getting into a little bit of foreshadowing, jumping ahead a little bit perhaps, our intention is to use the strategic plan steering committee as our advisory group, to meet with them and give them an opportunity to review the draft. We will also engage our DLAC as the English Learner Parent Advisory Committee. And of course, we will meet with our local bargaining units and have an opportunity for them to review the plan and to give us feedback. So once we've completed all that, we've done that consultation, then we will conduct a public hearing, give a notice to the public, and then again, we'll conduct that public hearing, and I will again have an opportunity to respond in writing, post it to the website, a response to any comments that we receive during that public hearing. And then the governing board will be asked prior to June 30th to adopt the budget and the LCAP, and actually in the reverse order, because we can no longer adopt a budget without an approved LCAP. So it doesn't have to happen on the same meeting. We're proposing that it does, but we cannot just adopt a budget without having an LCAP in place. That's a really different part of it. And I didn't get into the County Office Education part of it there, but the County Office of Education is tasked with approving districts' LCAP on an annual basis. A little bit, Michael?
Are they also the evaluatory point that will look at us, or will there be a state commission group of people that will evaluate our success?
There is no intention that there will be any state group looking at this. It's really unclear, which was a point I was about to make, was it's really unclear what the county will be utilizing in its review, because the rubric and the metrics for them to make that review will not be available until October. And yet they'll be asked to evaluate it in July.
Kind of feels like a school district-wide WASC accreditation of sorts.
It could be. I know that our county,
Complexity of it.
yeah. Our county, the direction they're giving us now is, all we're gonna be looking at is to make sure that your LCAP contains the state required components. We're not judging content. If you've dotted every I and crossed every T of what the state has asked, we're going to approve it. Because quite frankly, we don't know what else we're supposed to be looking at. Again, the rubric and the metrics for assessing LCAPs have not been developed yet. It wasn't until January 14th that we actually had an LCAP to work from. That's due in January. So it's a new funding formula, it's a whole new paradigm. It's being built, actively while we're moving along through the school year. So we've talked a little bit about engagement. So in consultation, again, these various groups, these are strategies for how you might do that. It's our intention to meet with principals as a separate group and to meet with the local bargaining units as a separate group in this process. Again, meeting with our parent advisory group. This is sort of a rehash of that whole big page into each of those sections. And meeting separately with the parent advisory group and separately with our DLAC through public meetings. And methods of engagement not only includes what I'm talking about right now is once the plan is there and we're presenting the plan, the methods of engagement include the initial outreach to get information back from your community that forms even the beginning of the plan, and that part of it we've already completed right here. So I'm going to go through that part of it. So in a typical 12-month process, which we don't have, we have 6 months, 5.5 if you count from the beginning of January. In a typical 12-month period, we would first conduct a needs assessment, which would also include an evaluation of how we did in that year in terms of meeting our goals through July and October. We would draft and consult a document in the span of November to January, again in consultation, all of those things. Inform and respond, in other words, meet with those advisory groups, including principals, including the bargaining units, and responding to their comments. And then the board, through April through June, would finalize the plan, amend it as per the governor's May revision and hopefully adoption of a budget by the state, and then approve the LCAP and the budget at a subsequent meeting after the public hearing. So we're not going to able to hold the public hearing and adopt the budget on the same night, which we've been able to do in the past. So almost done here. I know it's a lot of content. So this is a recommended timeline, and again, if you haven't noticed up here, these slides with a little bit of a change on my part are from School Services of California. So what this is what they've recommended, is that begin your needs assessment, involve your parents in this time period right now. So we've done that part. That's the part that we did October, November, and December through our strategic plan. And so right now we are in the process of completing, we being district level staff, completing a draft of the LCAP covering those 3 areas that we talked about earlier, the engagement piece, the goals piece, and then the actions and linkages back to the budget. And then by mid-April, we want to have met with our principals, we want to have met with our bargaining units, our steering committee, in this case our Parent Advisory Group and our DLAC, in consultation, hold a public hearing, and then adopt both the LCAP and the budget. So that's the accelerated timeline. And so 2 more slides and then we'll get to ours. That's the role of the superintendent. Just to note that in this process, it's not an isolation of individual schools developing single school plans for achievement and determining how to best spend allocated categorical dollars to support students. And then in another room, the CBO or Director of Fiscal Services, as is our case, developing a budget with other funds to support the programs that we have in place. And then, someone in C&I thinking ahead of what we need to do to support teachers and transitioning to the Common Core and what categorical resources do I have. But this is where all of the funds come together under one large tent and one large strategy. So I have the responsibility of orchestrating that, if you will. And the board has it's a companion role because the board is the authority to set direction for the district. But again, the board's going to have an opportunity to have deeper engagement with the community and again, thinking more strategically about the funds that we have available and really looking more closely at ensuring that there's alignment between the goals that have been established and expenditures, having a greater opportunity to be involved in how we assess and the results of that assessment of how we meet the goals. And so here we are with our LCAP development timeline for Cabrillo. So again, October, December, we had our engagement. That was aligned with our strategic plan data gathering. By March 14th, we will complete an initial draft of the LCAP. As I alluded to earlier, we have sections 1 and 2 and beginning to shape up, and we'll begin working on section 3 shortly. By April 11th, we will have completed community input on the proposed LCAP. We will have met with principals. Sorry, I neglected to include you there, but we won't be forgotten. Advisory committee, which is our strategic plan steering committee, our DLAC, and our bargaining units. If they're starred, the dates are starred, that means this occurs at a board meeting. At the April 15th board meeting, we'll provide an update to the board on what we learned from our community input meetings. By May 5th, we will post responses to the comments and questions we received during that community stakeholder outreach. At the May 8th meeting with the governing board, we'll provide them with our most current draft of the LCAP under a study session model for discussion, and the board can engage with staff to fine-tune that document. We'll bring it back at the next meeting in its near finished form to conduct a public hearing on both the LCAP and the 14-15 budget. And then by June 25th, we'll post our responses to comments and questions received at that public hearing. And then at the June 26th board meeting, we'll ask the board to adopt both the LCAP and the 14-15 budget. So are there any questions that you might have?
I have one. What is the single biggest challenge to this? I mean, this is what we do already. We're giving it a new name, and we're going to, take down some theoretical walls. But we know why we're doing what we're doing now. We're going to re-express it in a new plan, but we're not going to have a large amount of more money to use to meet the unfunded mandates we can't meet now, correct?
Not in the short term, no.
So What do you see as far as, do you see any huge challenges in what we have before us between now and June?
Well, I'm sort of hearing two parts to the question, and that is what are challenges, but also what's the benefit
Yeah.
as well, if I can superimpose that question
Sure.
as well. And I'll start with that, and that is that, my initial reaction was, here's another thing to do. We're already focused on making sure that we're providing the highest quality service with the highest quality staff. As I get further into this, I'm gaining an appreciation that this could very well be a vehicle for developing a true district-wide, community-wide strategy to address the needs of targeted kids. Again, we've been working, I'm not throwing Cabrillo under the bus, because this is the practice of public schools in California under the categorical program model, is that we've been doing so much of this in isolation, and we've asked Hatch to resolve their issues around those students. We've asked Farrell on View, El Granada, Cunha, the high school, Pilarcitos, Kings Mountain. We've asked all of these individually to do this work. And now this gives us an umbrella to address it systematically across the district. And it gives us a format to do that. So that's the end game. Challenges are, we're wading into a whole new world with very little guidance. We didn't have a template for the LCAP until January 15th or 14th. We don't know what the rubric is to measure success on developing the LCAP until October. So, the quiz is there, and we'll take it, and we'll submit it, and it will be graded, but it'll be down the road. So, at a meeting today, we heard a superintendent talk about, and this was a Common Core, is that, implementing Common Core in the middle of all the teaching and learning that's already going on is like changing the tire on a car going down the freeway. You can't stop and just focus on this. Everything else still needs to happen around you. So that's really a tremendous challenge. I think that after we live it and we've gone through the process, I would anticipate that community members, stakeholders, in particular staff, are going to be able to appreciate that this is a strategy that has greater transparency in terms of what we are about as a district and how we allocate our funds. And that's ultimately the goal right here, by turning over, by collapsing those categoricals and no longer saying you're going to spend it here, here, and there, but giving the communities the opportunity to make those decisions is only going to better serve our overall staff, so that we're not spending dollars on programs that have little meaning to our particular community as well. So, but it's a leap of faith, and I've jumped in, and staff has jumped in, and again, not that I mistrust those in Sacramento, but it's we just have to trust the process that it's going to serve kids in the end. I have a little bit of hope that it will.
I just want to make the comment that it would be, it's useful to go into it kind of knowing that that's their intent, is for it to be our plan, and using our strategic planning process and all the data we've been doing, how we have annual goals, and seeing this as a way of integrating all of that into one while satisfying the state's requirement, but really hopefully making it our own in that true way. And so hopefully that implementation will be, in that way, will be allowed by the state and will be embraced by the community. So then you can reap those benefits.
Yeah.
And use of data is an integral part of it.
Absolutely.
but different kinds of data, right? So
Right.
that's, and
We're
it
not
sounds
just-
like there's also some opportunity for deciding what kind of data you want to use within your own district, which I think would be a great opportunity to not always just be looking at particular test scores, but to look at all sorts of other information. I love seeing that qualitative data when
Yeah,
they
me
talk
too.
about it in the
Ra-
plan, you know.
Ramping into this, what data can we use? We can't use CSTs because we have to go back a couple of years to gather those, and we're not moving forward with CSTs, so why would you use CSTs? SBAC, the Smarter Balanced Assessment material, they're not online yet. We don't have any of that data. We won't have that data until next year. So the initial part of this is going to be, local data. That's going to be at the heart of our measuring our programs, at least in the short term. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Brings us to agenda item 12, communications. Does a board member have anything to share? Michael?
Just continue to be impressed with Raj as our principal at Pelicitos.
Oh, that will come up.
Yeah. I was picked up some roses today, and the gal said, oh, you had a great picture, and and I said, really? And I rushed to the Apple Bay Review, and then I opened it up, and whose face did I see? I saw yours. And I just think it's great we have just some really great leadership in our schools, and especially at Pelicitos, where the kids are so diverse in their passions and interests. So.
Thank you, Michael. Kurt?
I'll yield my time to Freya.
Fred?
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to congratulate Raj on the grant that he got. I was very happy to see that had been received. So I'm really excited to hear about the project and how it moves forward. And I'm sorry I didn't mention it at the last board meeting. I was thinking about it then. I also want to just say a thank you to the volunteers, some of whom are here tonight, all the parent volunteers that do so much. One who's still sitting here, it's really amazing how much our parents do for the school. And on that note, I want to just give a little call out to Corinne and Mary Beth, who've agreed to be our co-chairs for our personal tax renewal campaign, and all the people who stepped up for that, because that is a huge effort that we're hoping will be successful this spring and save us the loss of $1.7 million in funding a year. So I've been attending some of those meetings and helping that effort along. And I was very lucky to be able to attend Cunha with Kate the other day, and we had a lot of fun coming to some of your classrooms. We really appreciated being allowed to come in and see the learning going on and ask questions and participate, and it's really wonderful to be able to do that, and I hope to be able to do that at other schools as well as the year goes on. So thank you very much to Cunha teachers and principal for just allowing us to be there for not any really particular purpose, but to hang out. So
It was
thank you.
fun. It was nice, yeah. Thank you. Kurt, nothing? All right, Brenda, do you have something?
Yeah, I do. I didn't receive any reports from any of the other schools. So I have from the high school. We have our college gear day tomorrow, so staff's gonna be wearing their college gear. Course registration forms for the class were due last week for juniors, so we picked our classes for next year, so that's exciting. My last course registration form.
You last for high school.
Yeah.
Course
high school.
registration.
For the leadership class, we have tryouts. We began. Students are put into teams, and we have to come up with a project that will either benefit the community or the high school. So that's going on. Yesterday, 6 students, including me, attended a leadership conference at John C. Kimball High School and Tracy. Our advisor, Ms. Rocha, and Mr. Strong were there, so that was fun. We're bringing our ideas tomorrow, and we're going to present them to the class tomorrow at our ASC meeting. Rose grams for Valentine's Day are being sold at school. Tomorrow's the last day. We've sold over 200, so that's going really good. Talent battle tryouts begin on February 26th, and talent battle is May 16th. That's our treat to the high school right after APs, so they have something to look forward to. And we're excited for President's Week next week.
Thank you, Brenda. Tony?
Thank you. Guess you haven't heard enough from me tonight. Just two quick items. Last week, Principal Allison Silvestri and I attended a meeting with representatives from other high school districts in the county as well as the College of San Mateo. And the purpose of that was to engage us and really ask if we are interested in partnering in a grant, an extensive grant through the state to develop a tremendous partnership that would be 9-14, grades 9 through community college, to expand CTE pathways through high schools in partnership, and also provide greater opportunity for students to have dual enrollment at both CSM and at the high schools. And it's really an exciting opportunity, because many of these programs will either lead to some very basic initial certification upon graduation from high school, or will lead directly into higher levels of certification to be completed at the community college level. And so we're very excited to be partnering in this grant, and we'll have greater updates to the governing board as we embark upon that path, and ultimately, hopefully, are successful in receiving the dollars. There's a planning grant, and then there's an implementation grant, which I believe the implementation grant's 25 million or 250 million? Yeah, 250 million.
Who else is participating?
Are we the only ones?
No.
No. Up to 15, but that's...
Up to 15 other districts?
15 is the maximum per grant.
Right.
Oh.
Yep. So, and then I just wanted to also give a quick update on disaster planning. We are continuing to refine our protocols around ensuring that we're ready in the event of any future and further issues that occur within the district. And as part of that, we've received a great invitation from Jim Henderson, who's the general manager of KHMB Radio, and he's offered to provide the district access to their airwaves in the case of an emergency. It's actual code that will be shared judiciously within the district. But I now have the ability through a phone call to take over the airwaves. And you know, we're not supposed to use it to promote the Hatch event and those kinds of things. But in the event of an emergency, we can, you know, inform our community that additional updates and further updates will be available there. And that's really a nice thing as well. Now, it does have limitations. They have both a streaming and an over-the-air model, and unfortunately, it doesn't work with the streaming, so it's only the over-the-air. And that's only really reliable from the Moonridge, you know, south of Half Moon Bay area to about Frenchman's Creek. So, you know, if you have a high-quality radio, I understand you can get it all the way to the harbor, but you know, Moss Beach and is not simply going to, in Montera, you're not going to hear it there. But it is a nice event, and we've also, thanks to Ann Bailey, have been really honing in on our own Global Connect system, which allows us to send out those robocalls to include both over-the-air and text messages. And we've established a protocol whereby if there is an event that necessitates communicating with our community, that the schools will inform the district, which they already would, of the event, and then they can then focus on ensuring that staff and students are safe. And the district office, we have protocols within here of who will do that. It's not just relying on one person to make sure that that message goes out. And again, and then we can support the schools in what they need to manage and get through the issue at hand. So just wanted to reaffirm with the governing board that we're still, hasn't gone away. We're still looking and refining and getting better. And thanks to John Corey for his leadership and as pupil services and directing
being the director of our emergency response planning here in the district.
You'll have to get a radio handle. Little name. Thank you, Tony. Leads us to agenda item number 13, which is the consent items. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda item?
Second?
Freya moves, Kurt seconds. Do I do a roll call vote on this? No? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Can I make it?
Yes.
I just am really ecstatic to see action item A on there. And I just want to tell you, in the year and a half, or almost a half now that I've been on the board, the complexity of the challenges that our board faces, at times it's really difficult. But I am so impressed by the individuals in this room that I work with, and the decisions sometimes, the hard decisions that we make. And when I see this design for the new Pilocitos High School campus being brought forward and the intention to build that permanent site, that's just such a right thing to do in my heart. And I'm just so pleased to see that. And I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Patty, is that good for the roll call? We're good? All right. Action items, agenda item number 14, approval of a contract with WLC Architects to design the new Pilocitos High School campus. Tony?
Yes, I'm pleased to bring to the governing board one of the first items. It's really the second of the big ticket items, if you will, under our master plan, the first being the modernization of Hatch Elementary School that's already underway, not the actual work, but the design work. And so this action item is asking the governing board to contract with the WLC, which is the architect also of record for Hatch, for the design work in for the new Pilocitos campus.
Anybody comments? Anything
I
to
already
say?
made 'em.
You already made yours? So is there a motion to approve
I'd
the...
like to make that motion to approve.
You didn't even let me finish, Michael, but I can see. All right. Is there a second?
There's a second.
Freya seconds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So approved. Letter B, under action items, it's going to cast a district ballot for subregion 5B, representatives to the California School Boards Association Delegate Assembly. And there are 5 candidates running for this representation, and we get to vote for 3 of them. Anybody have a comment?
I've read it.
Discussion?
I've looked at them. I have some recommendations.
All right, that's...
I thought that let's see if I can pull this up a little more. If I can, the last 2 on the list, Kalima Saluda, can't see who that is there, and Alan Sarver had interesting bios on them. I know we have to come up with a third one. There's 2 incumbents. Anybody have any other thoughts?
Yeah, well, those 2 that you just mentioned represent high school districts.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of go for the 2 ladies who are representing elementary school districts. The one that's representing Belmont, Redwood Shores, and the
Savannah.
Redwood City Elementary School District.
Yeah.
One of them is an incumbent.
I like Alyssa a lot.
Yeah,
That's the Redwood City
Alyssa,
one.
yeah. So I think I'd like to suggest at least Alyssa representing Redwood City. And there is a familiar name of Greg Danis as a candidate representing Hillsborough. I don't know how much we
familiar
have in common with Hillsborough, but there he is. So
All right.
I'd like to put out those 2 ladies representing the elementary school
So
districts.
Savarna Bhopal
Mm-hmm.
and
Alyssa McAvoy.
Alyssa McAvoy. All right, and then of the other 2, Alan.
Well, there's
Sarver.
Mark, Kalima, and Alan, and they're all representing high school districts, which is not a bad thing, because of course we have one.
Somebody has to
2.
represent them.
Oh, we have two? I am so sorry. We have two. So, Freya?
I liked Alyssa, and I think, yeah, the Kalina I thought looked really interesting, the high school ones in particular. Just her bio I thought was fairly interesting. Those are the two that really stood out for me, so.
So would you accept then Suvarna, Alyssa, and Kalina as our 3 votes?
I won't do that last one, though.
Oh,
No.
but we have to decide on 3, don't we?
Yeah, the Kalina,
Up to 3.
Yeah.
I read her bio and was not impressed with it,
Interesting.
spelling in particular.
Oh, there were, yeah. Danis's too, actually.
What?
Greg Danis had some typos and stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, they had an opportunity to proof this, and it was not
Yeah.
impressive at all, so I wouldn't vote for her.
So we have Alyssa and not Kalina. Did you want to go with Alan or?
All right, what about Suvarna?
Yeah, I'd go for her, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So how about Alan?
Alan, okay.
Or was there
Versus-
someone else? What about the Mark Friedman?
Well,
Has
he's
anybody
in-
met any of them?
he's
No,
incumbent.
other than
I think I've actually met
Alyssa.
Mark, but yeah.
He's an incumbent, isn't he?
Right.
So maybe
As
there's
is
something in,
Elisa is
Mhm.
also, or Alyssa.
so maybe the 2 incumbents and 1 new one? What do you
or-
think about that?
Michael, what do you have any interest? Have any?
I don't know any of these people, so I can't.
I only know
See, I
from
don't
this
either,
paper.
just what you read.
Yeah.
I like the
Comments from
balance
the
though,
public?
of having
An incumbent,
incumbent, and I also like having elementary and high school.
and he represents the high school.
He's a high school.
Mm-hmm.
Who does?
Mark,
Oh, so it's keep the incumbents in office?
yeah, so it's
Okay.
Mark Friedman, Suvrana, I don't know how to pronounce that last name, and Elisa McAvoy.
Bhopal, yeah.
Bhopal
Yeah.
and Elisa McAvoy. What do you think about that as a slate?
Whatever.
That sounds good.
It's enough time.
Okay.
Motion to approve?
All right, so there's a motion for 3 candidates,
Two
Suvrana
incumbents and Suvarna.
All right.
Suvarna, Elisa,
and Mark Friedman.
Mark Friedman. Sounds good.
Do I hear a motion to
So
approve?
moved. So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Michael, did you do an aye?
I did aye.
Okay. All right, no discussion items tonight. Item number 16 is future board agenda items, and we'll be getting an English language learner report. Elizabeth, that would be coming from you. We'll be looking at the yearly procedure done each March, unhappy time of the year, looking at staffing for next year, and interim report, that'll come from you, Crystal, and again, updating board policies. Agenda item number 17, future dates. There's a lot of them, and I know, as Brenda has mentioned, the highlight is schools are closed for a week, President's Week, from February 17th to the 21st. We've got a couple of ELAC meetings going on in February, one at El Granada and a migrant meeting at Hatch. Cunha has an open house in February 27th, starts at 6:30. And then into March, we've got Measure E meeting coming up, and another, the March regularly scheduled meeting of the governing board meeting on March 6th.
Teachers about G, item G, the.
Oh, yes, of course I can. On February 17th, and if those...
27th.
Sorry?
27th.
On February 27th, excuse me, with the teachers in the audience, please spread the word that there's a chamber teacher appreciation at Mullins Grill in Half Moon Bay from 5 to 6:30 p.m., sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce. I believe that's where they give away some gifts.
Yes,
Some cash.
Some money?
Bills,
Cash.
Some cash.
So February 27th. All right.
Great. So, how about
That's
a
it?
motion to adjourn?
A motion to
I'll
adjourn?
make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
A second?
Second.
Plus one, I forgot. I am so sorry, Brenda. Thank you. Thank you.
All in favor?
Wait, let's vote.
In
Let's
all
vote.
Oh,
favor.
all in
Wait,
favor?
wait.
Aye.
Thank you, Brenda.
And we thank you. Oh, wait, everybody. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for coming. Oh, I did.